Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Vantine here with Ted Ings. Today we have an incredible panel with us, Ted. We have the Vehlo company with Euwart Anderson and Bobby Wilcox joining us. And we're talking a lot about data to decisions. And Ted, what an incredible topic for our listeners today.
Sarah, you're so right. I want to welcome and I want to thank Euwart Anderson and Bobby Wilcox for being with us today. Congratulations, all the success that you're having in the industry. You're moving at lightning pace. And Euwart, thank you for bringing us out. We're going to spend some time with you next week in Las Vegas and with the team, with all of your many brands at Las Vegas.
That's right. We're really excited about that, Ted and Sarah, and thank you guys for hosting Bobby and I here. Maybe more importantly, thanks for next week hosting and partnering with us to have a great NADA. We're stoked to present that partnership in a way in our industry that maybe it hadn't been seen before.
Velo will be in the West Hall NADA booth number 2911W, scrolling at the bottom there. Sarah and I will be out there the entire time with Ewart and Bobby and the many brands that Velo has grown. And we're excited about doing that. Our first time doing this at this level. So it's a magnificent setup. We'll have some great conversations. But first, to set the stage today, Sarah, we're going to talk about from data to decisions.
We are, Ted, and you were just to kick things off. We've had a lot of conversations, at the round table around data, and this is a really interesting point because dealerships and our retail listeners, when they're thinking about data, there's a lot of different meaning behind what data driven, incorporates. So I'd love to get your take for 2026. What does data driven really mean for our retailers?
Sure. Great question, Sarah. I think what it's meant up to this point is when you have a problem that you can assess and you see that problem form organically, you go try to do a bit of a shotgun approach and just to resolving that problem, and you try to find data sometimes that actually supports what you believe is the problem and or solution. What we're referring to as data to decisions is actually more proactively getting visibility to every data point involved in any particular process that drives the results you're trying to create, whether that's profitability, an improved customer experience, a better return on used car value, more retention for your customers in the service lane, et cetera. And being able to not just look at subjectively the data points you want to see or the data points that tell the story you want to see or hear, but also the data points that maybe you haven't thought about before, or the data points that actually reveal some real opportunity and maybe even some bad decisions up to that point that you now have the opportunity and visibility to change. And that level of ownership and accountability, it all starts with data, and that allows you to make really informed, objective decisions that are centered, focused on results that you're trying to create that are quantifiable, right? So that's the way I would kind of juxtapose the way that the industry and just in general how humans tend to look at problems and approach them with selective data point visibility versus full on objective facing your demon in the mirror, so to speak, looking at your business and seeing where you can improve, all driven by data points.
Bobby, it sounds like what you were describing is the goal is really fewer debates and more action.
Yeah, and you if you can't measure it, you can't grow it. And when there's a lot of things like, especially like with the reporting and all the data that we get, and like you were said, the human approach is to just be the leader and you go out and you throw parts at it, right? Pun intended. We're throwing parts at the problem, and let's be educated if we're going to take a scientific approach to improving our performance and our processes in the dealership. Leverage the reports to be the truth behind what's really happening.
Gentlemen, your company Velo has really now grown in the fixed operation space,
Hmm.
where you provide solutions that are day to day bread and butter, whether it's dealer logics, text to drive, rapid recon, some of the more recent companies, Dealer Pay, who we've had here on the roundtable for a long time, Total Customer Connect. I may be missing one or two along the way, but it really speaks to what you're focused on, which is fixed operations. I've heard you say before, start with outcomes and then work backwards. Maybe to drill down on that a little bit if you don't mind for me.
Sure, sure. And you hit all the brands but one, Service Lane e-advisor. So
Okay.
so when I think, and which is a big part of our gambit as it relates to getting data, we are able to plug directly into a vehicle and extract loads of data from practically, the vast majority of the OEM space, all the primary OEMs for sure. And we're able to incorporate that data into a dealer's reporting system and give them pure visibility, not only the opportunity to really focus on a customer during check-in, but also visibility to everything happening in that vehicle, not just what you see with your lying eyes, but what the vehicle tells you is happening, right? And so I just wanted to call them out. But to answer your question, to go back to your final question, when you think about having the decision making data in hand, and why that's important and how we've positioned ourselves to attack that is with our brands. You mentioned the last two acquisitions, Total Customer Connect, or the market knows them as TCC, and Dealer Pay. We now have from beginning to end data in countless gigabytes, right, to be able to leverage in how we coach and inform our dealers to attain success. So when you think about what success means, I think this more directly connects to your question. Success means something different to every dealer, and we have to help them understand what the quantifiable success means, right? I'll give you an example. Improving customer experience.
Okay.
That's a great mantra. There's nothing wrong with that goal. But how do you measure that goal? Right? The measure of that goal is likely not just CSI. I can have a lot of happy customers in my service lane, but I could be bleeding 10% in retention in the meantime, and I'm not getting any data from that 10%, and therefore I don't see that I actually have unhappy customers because I'm not measuring the part of that workflow where they leave and they never come back. Which, if their vehicles are not under warranty, the ratio of those customers that don't come back to the dealership they purchased their vehicle from is very high post warranty, right? So now if I don't measure that retention in a very quantifiable objective way in the form of revenue, right? And vehicles. If I'm not measuring it that way and I'm only looking at CSI as an example, I'm missing half of the equation. So that's just one example from a customer experience perspective that I think applies to profitability, to revenue, to productivity of your technicians and service lane advisors, to the effectiveness of your parts management department. All of those components have 3 to 6 data points that really can showcase their effectiveness, and maybe said differently, can showcase where they're winning and where they could win more.
Bobby, I've heard you speak to that as well, that every decision should tie to one outcome.
Yeah, and how frequently are we extracting that information, right? You typically you want to catch a problem or an opportunity, you know, a week in, or a couple weeks in, or before it grows into the bigger problem. You don't, we like to review things on a monthly basis in the car business, right? Everything's about the month. Well, you can't wait to the end of the month to decide or to realize you had a problem for the last 3.5 weeks, right? So, leveraging that information in real time, and maybe just having 10-minute stand-up meetings with your people, as on a more frequent basis, so that you can seize these opportunities when the time is right.
Well, and what Bobby, what you're describing, and you are, this is the reality of where the industry is heading for fixed operations. And as you mentioned, customer retention is so important, but understanding those data points and how those outcomes, need to be crafted. It's really important in this whole decision process. But you were, in thinking about this, a lot of our dealer listeners, we might have fixed operations managers, general managers listening today that are thinking about this going, well, gosh, this sounds incredibly complex for me to execute. Like, where do I even get started? And one of the things that I've been so impressed with has been y'all describe it as the playbook. And so share
Mhm.
with us a little bit more about what this simple decision loop is.
Sure. So the playbook for us is kind of threefold. Number one, the first arm of the playbook is our most important asset, and when I say our, I'm including our customers' most important asset, and that's their people. So arming the dealer and arming our team to partner and counsel dealers to focus on the clarity and the accountability and ownership level of their staff, which is what Bobby was intimating just a moment ago. The second of the three legs is the technology, right? So for us, our goal, right, our goal, different than maybe our competitors in the market, is to not necessarily have you in the technology so much as to have the technology be in your hands and you use it sparingly to the degree to be able to create the results without tying up your entire day in it. Like we don't necessarily want, from a user experience, someone staring at a screen all day. Dealerships don't make revenue staring at screens. Dealerships make revenue talking to people and serving customers. So our technology is intended and geared toward that end, right? Whether it's text to drive and dealer logics, or if it's TCC and rapid recon. Either way, the technology is intended to have minimal or optimal touch with maximum results in the background and maximum visibility. The third piece is, how do you take the combination of the people and the alignment and culture and accountability and the technology intended for a focus on customer, not just all day hands on keyboard, and turn that into a powerhouse of results that are all financial, right? Because dealers, at the end of the day, they are pillars in the community. They're supporting families. They have to make profit to be able to do that, and we want to make sure that the combination of those first two legs in the playbook are driving the third. And in that third, since that's the outcome you want, those financial results, the way that you get that is you look at ultimately the data points that are behind each of your desired financial results in a very objective way. And I can't say this enough, it's difficult to do. Teaching dealers and teaching humans, outside of automotive, just to do that is very, very complex. And yet it's actually really straightforward, right? Like it's very difficult to take something that you see is not working and to reflect on it and see that you may have made a poor decision, or you may not be making the right tactical decisions on a week to week, to Bobby's point, or a month to month basis, right? Like, that's a very difficult thing to do. It takes a lot of humility. And for what we bring to the table, and our intention is to help our clients face that in a way that's not quite as painful, right? So if we're able to help them understand, these are the data points, here are the decisions you now could make with those data points, and here's how you can execute those decisions on a week over week basis with minimal technology involved and a better user experience, a better customer experience, then that's what we're trying to direct them to. And it sounds like it's very difficult, but the truth is, the difficult part is actually inside. The difficult part's not in the execution, right? Data is clear. Decisions from data, actionable decisions, at least, they're typically pretty clear. But the ego, the humility, all those pieces, they actually cloud the actionable data, right? And the insights that come out of it. And when you help dealers remove that or get past it, now we're in execution mode. We can actually create results quickly, right? So I'll pause there, but I think that kind of talks about the three prongs of the playbook, and then a little color about what's under that playbook that we help dealers deal with.
Bobby, this is incredible to hear what Ewart is describing. And as far as implementation, what are the pieces of advice that you give a dealer in this playbook to really execute this efficiently?
Yeah, if you want anything to be done in consistency or consistently, you got to build a culture around it. You were kind of
Mhm.
alluded to that. Culture is big, right? I always tell, influence the thinking, right? Which typically is, hey, let's make more money. How can everybody make more money? Have a tool to measure, or a tool to, facilitate that process. And then third of all, build a culture around it. And you can't build a culture around it without having number one and number two. And we talked a little bit about the shotgun approach. You can't have your handful of reports and go, we're going to be 100% better. You don't run around being 100% better. Let's be 1% better in 100 different ways, right? And let's target some specific actionable things, and pull your people into the culture with a few things here and there, and work your way in, and like back into it. That's a perfect verbiage, is back into the culture and building a culture around it.
Gentlemen, I want to come to you on the speed of retail right now. It is a whole new business than it was just even a few years ago. Customer
Mhm.
expectations are in real time. Bobby mentioned, I think, a little while ago about every month looking at the numbers. Well, that's too late. The horse is out of the barn.
Yeah.
You were talk to us a little bit about the weekly review and a weekly decisions rhythm, and doing that much more often.
Sure. From a weekly decision review perspective, I think I'll talk about that from a dealer point of view, but then maybe as a dealer partner point of view as well.
Okay.
So for the dealer, there are a key set of outcomes and results that every dealer is looking to focus on, and every dealer ultimately, every business in the world is ultimately looking to make a profit and to make more revenue. But that is probably a bit too simple. So behind that, what exactly is the dealer trying to accomplish, right? Make more service revenue out of existing customers, drive more car sales to ultimately infuse revenue into the service bay. Like what exactly are they trying to do? They can do that by going out and picking up 100 new service customers. They can also do that by not losing 100 service customers, right? So if you think about it, like there's lots of ways to skin the cat, so to speak, and helping dealers to really understand on a weekly basis,
Sure.
how does the data say you are doing at the end of the day against those metrics is key. And in that weekly review, I think Bobby kind of alluded to this earlier, that weekly review in the dealership, dealers today, some of like the best of them, they do what I'm about to say, but a lot of them don't. And that is make sure that at all levels, everyone in the organization has visibility to those key metrics, not just the management, not just the senior executives in the dealership, everyone, the technician, the parts manager,
Yes.
like
Yes.
everyone in the org needs to understand what the end game is that they're trying to influence, right? Not just their little piece, because sometimes the why will help them actually execute better, right? So they really need to understand that on a week to week cadence. And maybe the outcome of the customer experience is not a focus for the parts manager, as an example, but the parts manager understanding that customer experience and retention is a problem, that parts manager, he or she can now start to maybe be more effective in parts delivery and parts communication back to the advisors, and that will in turn create a better customer experience because now the advisors are prepared to communicate more effectively. Like there are a lot of indirect components that in the dealership, frontline staff and team members aren't armed with data to execute better. They don't know. Right. And the managers are wondering, well, why can't we get this to turn? And it's because they're not cascading communications all the way to the front line to all of the troops. Right. And if you think about it from a military perspective, you don't just tell the top leadership that we're going to go, execute on some strategy. You tell everybody, and they all know their part, and they go do their part. Right. It's the same thing in any company. We have to communicate that. How we fit into that equation is we introduce either a combination of reporting, consultation, and even some artificial intelligence or AI elements to help dealers to get information at their fingertips more frequently. And maybe we help to bridge a gap with a manager who's not a great communicator. We can now share that data with their entire staff, and now it's not dependent on the manager to communicate it. The technology helps to translate that into actionable decisions, right? And everyone's got visibility. So there's the dealership component and the general just management, hurdle that all of us face who have people reporting to us. And then there's the technology piece that we're trying to use and we have used successfully up to this point to help over 9,000 dealers in the nation using one of our
Wow.
products to
Wow.
overcome.
Wow. Sarah, we're seeing more and more of that around the country as you and I travel.
We are, Ted, and I mean what Euwart is describing in this ecosystem, and Bobby, the real stories of how this really impacts all of the elements in our communities, with our employees, with our customers, and ultimately the business. I mean, Euwart, it really is, every single one of these decisions. It really has to have a clear owner and a clear responsibility, and somebody who is really championing those elements of it. And so I also want to get your perspective on this too, because as dealership operations have evolved over the last several years, Ted and I have had many conversations here at the roundtable with y'all as well about how the silos in the dealership are coming apart. We're seeing that transparency between sales and service, and the customer expecting
Mm.
all of these pieces. But when it comes to those friction points that you described, the defection of 100 customers that leave because of something, sometimes that can be because there's not a clear definition of where somebody is owning the problem or somebody is speaking to that. So I'd love to get your perspective. What are some strategies that really help dealerships, own these elements in this decision?
Sure. Well, I think defining what success looks like is where it starts. Which is another way of saying what we mentioned earlier of really understanding what the ultimate outcomes are that dealers and business owners and managers are trying to target in a quantifiable way. I think starting with what does success look like is key, as far as having ownership, and then your part to play in that and understanding that from a management perspective is also very important. And I'll use an analogy. So when you're on a football field, for those of us who have played the sport, when there's a fumble, whether you had the ball or not, there's no designated fumble jumper. Like Bobby's not the guy. I
Yeah.
don't stand and watch the fumble happen and go, well, Bobby, that's your job. Like it's there's a there everyone's accountable, right? So when you think about it, there are aspects of the dealer operations where one person needs to have very clear ownership and accountability, which tells that person that he or she is trusted. And when people are trusted, they simply perform
Yeah.
better, as proven statistically. So and that puts pressure though on a dealer leadership team to make sure they can articulate and showcase that to a employee at all levels, right? So
Right.
it does highlight potentially a lack of trust in areas, and then you have to overcome that. So being able to create that ownership culturally is first, then creating the ownership by measuring the outcomes each individual owner is accountable to create is second. The element of the business though where the fumble jumper analogy really comes into effect is there are some things that everyone owns, right? For instance, as a dealer, I may want a culture and an ownership level that's very high around everyone is a customer. So whether I'm working with a
Yes.
actual consumer buying a vehicle, a consumer getting service, my partner as the advisor, since I'm the technician, I'm going to treat him or her like a customer too. Everyone I interact with is my customer. So that's going to make me operate a certain way, right? As an example. So I think dealers getting really clear about the ownership level at the philosophical level, the cultural level is a must, because if you try to go down this matrix, like, I'm going to do a racy chart of you own this, you own that, you own this, and you do that without the supporting culture that hinges on it, you are building a concrete foundation on sand. Like it will not stay
No.
balanced. And any of us who've all been in business, we know that it's not even necessarily specific to automotive, right? That ownership level is very very difficult to create. But when you can take the time to do it with your leadership team, cascade that to management, take the time to cascade that to the front line, and then support each level with data and reporting weekly. Make goals against that data on a weekly and monthly cadence. Some things don't move, the needles don't move the same in every compartment, right? So
Sure.
so it
Sure.
could be that some things only move on a monthly cadence or quarterly cadence, but a lot of things move weekly. Break them down to as isolated of tasks and outcomes as you can so that you can make decisions quickly, to Bobby's earlier point. Now you've actually got the playbook in place, right? The technology that we offer and our competitors offer should simply supercharge that. Like if you're leaning on technology to fix your problem at the dealership,
Yeah.
that's where they go wrong, and that's frankly why dealers hop technology so much, because they're trying to
You're
find
right.
technologies that
You're right.
solve a problem that's not intended for technology to solve.
You're right. You're so right. Bobby, a number of years ago, with Rapid Recon was the first time I heard about solving bottlenecks, fixing
Mm,
bottlenecks in the dealership, and that was in the reconditioning process,
mhm,
because the bottlenecks, were things such as, waiting for an approval, waiting for one
mm,
person to do that. That person's not in the store, won't be back till next week. He's at the auction. Okay, Sarah, and that kind of holds things up. And then as a result, there are no handoffs, there's no parts. And, really though, Bobby, that really speaks to the entire dealership process. There are bottlenecks, whether it's in the write-up process, whether it's in the dispatching process, whether it's in the way customers pay.
Mhm.
Speak to us, Bobby, because don't chase the numbers, fix those bottlenecks.
100%, and every single one of our products leverages technology to communicate between those departments to where you have bottlenecks, right?
Okay.
And what reflect on what Euwart said is that, every interaction, it's whether it's that technician at the back parts counter, there's a customer behind that technician, right? Because their car's in the shop. And, the ripple effect when things start to break down is just, now you're playing whack-a-mole, and then you're scratching your head trying to figure out why your customer, your CSI is not great because, you just don't have continuity of communication. Every single one of our tools creates that hot potato and really shores up that communication between all the departments within a dealership that sometimes don't communicate super well. Uh, it allows them to communicate instantly and through technology, and the end result is the customer's benefit, because and in turn
Mhm.
we're now communicating with the customers by leveraging that technology. So it just really speeds up the whole process.
That's right.
And you were, in this, what Ted brought up, with rapid recon specifically, this, all of these decisions that are happening and all of these improvements that we're working towards with our dealerships, these are, can be very vague when it comes, down to like a team meeting. If you have all your managers and leadership
Mhm.
together, sometimes, there's just all right, well, my decision, here it is. We're going to improve recon this year. That's going to be what we're going to focus on. We're going to have more customer pay ROs, but there's not really the dedicated, small, specific, testable components that go into this. So, you are and Bobby, what are you seeing out there in terms of how dealerships can really start with some of these smaller decisions and have a very specific, testable format?
Yeah, I,
Yep.
I think I'll hand it off to you, Bobby. I got a burning response for this one. So one initial thought that just comes to mind vividly, Sarah, is it actually relates to what we tend to do as humans and what dealers aren't exempt to, and that's isolating themselves and kind of just being kind of internally focused. For instance, not seeing how well they could be performing by just looking at the problem. And maybe another way of saying that is like maybe you're so close to the tree you can't see the forest, right? So I think the number one kind of solution to that is step back, seek out counsel. How am I actually, when we do this review, by the way, for our dealers at no cost for practically all of our products,
Well,
we're happy to take a dealer, walk them through key areas of their business, and do a consultation to help them see where they could be performing and how they're performing compared to the average. If we had only 200 dealers, that'd be a different story. We have over 9,000. More than half of the franchise
that's
dealers in the
incredible.
US are using one of our products. Like
Wow.
we actually have reliable, tangible, objective data that's not muddied by our beliefs or our dealers' beliefs. It's just raw information. And we're able to take that information and use it in an anonymized fashion to help a dealer understand, hey, you may feel like you're performing at 110% versus your competition across the road. But the reality is, in your respective region, you're performing at 87% in this area. And here's what you could possibly do about that and how we can help. Or we can't help, but we can connect you with someone who can, because we're not gonna shoehorn anything into a dealer. Our goal is to get you results. So if that result is with someone else, we're gonna make that connection because we want to be that trusted advisor, right? So we do that all day. That's what we do. Like that's our culture. That's who we are. And I think that's probably the biggest answer to that question, Sarah, is being able to encourage dealers to get outside of themselves, challenge their own status quo, go to the likes of us or others that have lots of data, make sure they have objective decision making data, and seek out their comparison. How am I performing? Right? If there are four areas in your business that you want to perform better at, or you want to improve, or you're unsure, you're just generally unsure. I think I'm doing fine. Am I? We can help you answer that question. Right. And whether we can or not, you need to get that question answered.
Yeah.
Don't sit back and let it go unanswered for another month. Bobby, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, take that the information that's always readily available through our tools. What Sarah was kind of mentioning, that you have the meeting room with the leaders. Well, kick the leaders out. Get the people in there that actually make either recon happen, or the guy that's actually, turning a wrench to get this customer's car through the shop,
Yeah.
right? And
Hmm.
utilize these short-term stats to coach your team even on a daily basis. Have a jump start meeting every morning before your service lane opens, right? Hey, this, and then you can go over to the metrics of, hey, let's do a little bit better on this. Let's do a little bit better on this. And get the people in the room that actually make it happen. And the leaders are for just kind of digesting the information from a it's kind of like the hospital. You get all the nurses and the doctors, and the nurses who are in contact with the patients the most often, right?
Most of,
They're
yeah.
the ones that need to be in a room if you're going to
Hmm.
improve anything at your hospital. The doctors, you see the doctor once or twice, but the nurses, the hands-on people, that's who you need to have your meetings with and share the
To
numbers.
that point, Sarah and Ted, Bobby, I'm so glad you said that because you reminded me of probably just as an important factor here is I think oftentimes what we see, and Bobby can attest to this as a veteran automotive professional and leader, like when you look at dealerships compensation plans versus the information they share and the
Mm,
results they want, there is usually dysfunction there. So compensation plans may be 10 years old in model, but the results they want are from 2026. So that means 2024's comp plan probably is not fully
okay.
adequate and addressing the results you want
Sure.
this year. Right.
Industry
So
change.
I would
Yeah.
strongly encourage dealers to challenge the status quo there as well. Don't let that comp plan get in the way of not driving the behavior that you want. Right. Like we're people and people respond and manage comp plans. And that's the way people work.
You hit the nail on the
Gentlemen,
head. Oh, I'm sorry. You hit the
no,
nail on
go.
the head. Pay plan drives behavior, and
Mm.
that's exact. You echoed it perfectly. You were with that said. You're not going to walk into a meeting. Hey, how the leader meeting is how can we make more money? But these daily touches or these weekly touch meetings need to be how can I help you guys make more money? Because
Yes,
you can't just nobody wants to hear, no employee wants to hear how they can make somebody else more money, right?
that's
So
right.
you got to deliver. The delivery is key.
The industry is going to descend on Las Vegas next week, gentlemen, at the NADA show, the annual show. I know you have something very special planned because Sarah and I are going to be spending our time with you at the
Mhm.
NADA in the West Hall. If you look down below in the scroll, everybody, Velo and the products will be at NADA booth number 2911W. Sarah and I and Euwart and Bobby and the rest of the Velo team and Fixed Ops Roundtable team will have a stage set up there, and we're going to be continuing this conversation, answering questions, and talking to some of the best in the industry who will be joining us there. And we invite our audience to come join us, learn more about what Velo is doing to advance our industry, move it forward. Ewart, I know I don't want to give away the store, but I heard there might even be something special in the wind in terms of announcements coming next week.
That's right. So two quick things, Ted, and thanks for giving me the mic on that really quickly. So number one, all of our brands that we represent, we believe our muscle, so to speak, is in our brands, not in the Velo particular brand itself. Where we are today, more of a house of brands versus a branded house. Velo, I would say, is our connected tissue, and it allows us to do some really interesting things for our dealers. But the muscles in the brand. So the brands, just to remind everyone, are Text to Drive, Dealer Logics, Service Lane E-Advisor, Rapid Recon, Velocity, and then also Total Customer Connect, or TCC, as the market knows them, and Dealer Pay. We will all be represented all together, and the reason that's important is that we will be able to present, showcase, walk through the value proposition and ROI and the problem solving opportunity of all of those products, any of those products. And that's important because we have multiple customers with lots of dealers on multiple products. We actually have a really good kind of cross sell motion, if you will, and cross pollination motion that's proven successful. The way that we're also driving that, to announce or to share a little bit about like what you said, giving away the
Okay.
farm. Well, we're going to give away
Yes.
some of the farm. Um,
Okay.
so the promotion for NEDA is specifically 25% off of any of our products, SaaS. So that
Wow.
excludes any DMS integration fees,
Mhm.
but as it relates to SaaS, we are giving 25% off, right
Wow.
off
Yeah.
top. So I think that's important
Wow.
because what we're not doing, as an example, is we're not doing a month free and then you're back at, some full price. Like we are doing 25% off, period.
Wow.
So that's, you think about what that means for a dealer, like into
Yeah.
perpetuity, so to speak, or over a period of 2 to 3,
Wow.
4, 5 years. That's a real
Yes.
savings.
That's huge. All right, everybody. Well, the place to be is going to be at the Vehlo booth next week, 2911W in the West Hall. You're going to look for Sarah Van Tyne and Ted Ings. We're going to be there. We're going to be present. We're going to be on the stage. Euwart Anderson will be there with the team for the many brands that we just heard about. A lot of great friends of the Fixed Ops Roundtable community. Plus, not only will you get to meet Bobby Wilcox, you're going to meet a lot of the folks and dealers who speak on the Fixed Ops Roundtable. We've invited everybody in. So we're all going to be converging on that Vehlo booth with our great friends and everybody. You don't want to miss that next week at NADA Las Vegas, West Hall, 2911W is the booth number. You're going to hear a lot about it here. And Bobby and Euwart, thank you so much for the opportunity. And Sarah and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah,
Thank
we're
you.
excited to see you guys too.
Looking forward to it.
All right, everybody. We'll see you in Vegas. Join us there. Euwart Anderson, Bobby Wilcox, and the team at Vehlo here with us today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.